Good morning, all. And today's video is, I feel since my path had the misfortune of being crossed by Elizabeth Oyer, Joe Biden's ex-pardon chief, who President Trump fired, who is caught in the middle of a firestorm over accusations whether or not she used auto pen to forge Joe Biden's signature on pardons that he gave. Well, he was unaware of this happening. I do have something to say about this woman. She has a history of misconduct. She came after me in around 2004, and I attribute the continued people coming to my property and doing rapid fire with their guns, hacking my computer, trying to destroy evidence for court cases and claims I have on my computer, trying to stop me from earning income as an autistic person, just basically destroying my life. I attribute it to what she and her fellow law clerks and attorneys set in motion when she was posting her misconduct on blogs at the time that she was assigned as a law clerk for the Honorable 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal Judge Stanley Marcus. So I'm listening to this Trump's desire to void pardons. And this CNN interview was given by Anderson Cooper on March 18th, 2025. Now, I started thinking about this, and I cannot sit by and listen to the history of misconduct of this woman, Elizabeth Oyer, without speaking up about what I know about this woman and her character. Now, I'm autistic by diagnosis of Michael W. Hoffman, MD, and my autism diagnosis was based on the gold standard autism diagnostic test, the ADIR, and in Dr. Hoffman's own words in his email, he called my autism diagnosis a, quote, autism diagnosis, end quote. So I'm autistic. And what does that mean? That means that I have a different brain and I'm a different neurotype of a person than the neurotypical Miss Oyer. So I did not know who Elizabeth Oyer was at the time she crossed my path, and with her law clerk and lawyer friends launched an autism hate attack on me and my life. Now, there are certain blog posts where when you read them and how Elizabeth Oyer and her friends are talking about their ability as people who are not parties in my cases to, and yes, she was an 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal law clerk assigned to one of my cases, assigned to the Honorable Stanley Marcus. But she and her law clerk and lawyer friends went much farther than that. Their blog posts on public blogs at the time suggested that they were deep staters who could fix cases in the Florida State Court to put a person on a vexatious litigant registry to ban that person's court access completely so that the person would be defenseless. They talked about having so-called fucking tools in order to be able to fix these cases and carry out their lawfare upon poor unsuspecting victims like me who never heard of this person, Elizabeth Oyer, before. And what was it about her crossing my path that connected with her described undisclosed mental illness that caused her and her law clerk friends and attorneys to stalk me across state lines into the state of Florida and say, when we get done with you, you'll have a mental disability, i.e. that they can frame people on criminal charges, that they can carry out stalking, that they have connections with the deep state because I'm autistic. And in Florida, there's only around one autistic Florida bar member among over 111,000 neurotypical members of the Florida bar. This will shed light on the type of historical misconduct and lawfare that Elizabeth Oyer and her law clerk friends and lawyers took out on me. It targets autistic adults who try to become lawyers. Myself, I have a 3.5-decade-long effort to become a licensed lawyer. I was attacked with a hate group of Aunt TM, who is Elizabeth Oyer, Joe Biden's ex-pardon chief, who is now in this firestorm in the national media. She and her fellow law clerks and attorneys used fucking tools on me. They operated as a group who, ever since the day my path crossed her, they do terrible things to me. They come to the edge of my property and start rapid firing their guns to intimidate me. They go on the internet and make false criminal accusations against me. They network through their law clerks and employees who are bar members to make false charges against me, like we recently saw. This is just more of this deep state. And so let's look more into the long history of misconduct of Elizabeth Oyer. Since she was featured on CNN with Anderson Cooper 2 days ago, let's talk about the part of the story that Anderson Cooper and Elizabeth Oyer and his panel for the news story didn't tell the American public. Let's take a look at this firestorm Elizabeth Oyer now finds herself in the middle of.
Liz, last night the president posted on social media, this is on another whole other story, he said, quote, "The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them," end quote. Now, obviously, the auto pen, it's a device presidents of both parties have used to sign documents when they don't have the time or inclination to sign it by hand. It's not clear if President Biden did that or not. I understand you were not involved in those decisions, but can a president void his predecessor's pardons regardless of the circumstances? Does it work that way?
Anderson, yeah, to be clear, the Office of the Pardon Attorney where I worked had no role in the decision-making around that pardon, and I think we could have a legitimate debate about whether the president should or should not have the power to issue preemptive pardons like that one. I think that tweet is really just a distraction. It's really just one small example of the fact that the president is determined to demolish the rule of law, and he is prepared to steamroll anything or anyone that's standing in his way. And the Attorney General stood by his side. She introduced him, and she essentially endorsed the idea that she's not going to be independent of the president. She does not have an agenda of her own. She's not going to stand up to him. She is there to facilitate the president's agenda. And I don't think anyone who saw either her remarks or his remarks could have any doubt that the president is the one who is setting the agenda for the Department of Justice. So he's really going after the rule of law from multiple different directions. And it's a very scary, alarming situation for all Americans and should be to everyone, regardless of their politics.
And this video is on CNN. Ex-DOJ pardon attorney reacts to Trump's desire to avoid pardons. And it was on YouTube here, found here. That was one viewpoint in this firestorm Elizabeth Oyer finds herself in. Another viewpoint was expressed here. That was one of the deep state hackers that Elizabeth Oyer put into motion on my life by the fucking tools she and her friend law clerks and lawyers began right there. They're trying to censor me to stop me from whistleblowing on Elizabeth Oyer. They're on my computer. They stop everything I can do to censor me right here. And the FBI and Donald Trump said they'd stop the censorship. Well, I got news for you, Kash Patel and President Trump. You haven't routed out all of the deep state yet. This alternative point of view, for whatever anybody thinks about it, is on Infowars here. And it's right here at this link on Infowars. And it's an article entitled, Breaking, Trump Declares Biden Pardons Void, Says Joe did not sign or know anything about them. There's this video here. I'm being censored, so it won't work if I, try to operate the video. You see the hacker here is censoring me. They're using a ghost program. This is illegal. They're censoring me because I'm autistic, and the hate attack this Elizabeth Oyer initiated on me that still continues today. Now, yesterday it came out that former President Joe Biden was incapacitated during his presidency.
You heard it here first, that Joe Biden was incapacitated mentally from pretty much the beginning of his administration.
That was Bill Riley. It's going to come out. Biden was incapacitated during his presidency on YouTube here. That's part of what is at the center of this firestorm Elizabeth Oyer now finds herself in.
It's not just that the pardons were signed with an auto pen. It's that clearly the former president, Joe Biden, had absolutely no awareness of or any clue about what was being signed in his name. He's on a beach in Delaware doing God knows what. In other words, you have all these instances where you can show that something was signed by an auto pen when Joe Biden was not even physically present, aware, around at all. And so the accumulation of evidence makes clear that Joe Biden had no awareness, no knowledge, no participation, and frankly, in the administration of government for 4 years, but in particular, in this case, with respect to these pardons, which then means, of course, the Department of Justice has its own authorities to pursue as it sees fit. Any other questions?
That was on Forbes Breaking News. It's not just that the pardons were signed by auto pen. Stephen Miller tears into Biden. And that news story was also on March 18th, 2025. And here on Forbes Breaking News, just in, Levitt pressed for clarity on Trump's claim pardons are invalid due to auto pen, and that's here.
I saw the president's post overnight saying that the pardons that were issued by President Biden preemptively to members of the January 6th committee, that they're now null and void. Have attorneys here at the White House told President Trump that he has the legal authority to undo a pardon simply because it was signed by auto pen, as he said?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true. The president was raising the point that did the president even know about these pardons? Was his legal signature used without his consent or knowledge? And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the President of the United States autograph without his consent.
Biden is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Again, this is the firestorm Elizabeth Oyer now finds herself in. And there were a couple of other news stories that went so far as to suggest that some of these pardons were forgeries of Joe Biden's signature. Now, I believe that this last video probably sets the stage for that accusation. I'm only reporting what the firestorm is. I'm not making this accusation on Miss Oyer. That's up to the FBI and the Department of Justice to investigate her. And if they do find that she committed criminal conduct, then to charge her. That is their province. That is not my province. But I crossed paths, unfortunately, with this woman, Elizabeth Oyer. And that puts me in the position of a whistleblower on her long history of misconduct. So if you were to ever ask the question, would Elizabeth Oyer forge Joe Biden's signature on a pardon? Would she engage in this kind of misconduct? Well, I think what she did to me certainly reflects the kind of misconduct. So I get to say what she did to destroy my life. That's the impact of what she did on my life. And so let's get into it more. In one of my prior videos about ANTM, i.e. Elizabeth Oyer, I showed how Elizabeth Oyer, who said she was an 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal law clerk for the Honorable Stanley Marcus, matches up with her blog posts under the anonymous ID ANTM. So that was her moniker, ANTM, and it matches up with her writing under this anonymous ID on public blogs that she was the law clerk assigned to my case working for 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeal Judge Honorable Stanley Marcus. In all of these things that she did, I also want to point out that it does not appear that the Honorable Stanley Marcus ever disciplined her or turned around her miscarriage of justice on me at any time whatsoever. And in this case that she did these things to me, that she's talking about on the public blog, I was unsuccessful in the case, and I attribute it to being because of these ex parte communications that she was making on this blog and feeding into the decisional process on my case with the Honorable Stanley Marcus. And that tainted my cases in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals from then on out. Okay, so Elizabeth Oyer admitted by her own public posts on her pardon page for Joe Biden that she was the law clerk for the Honorable Stanley Marcus 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. And he is who the case they're talking about of mine was assigned to. And she says, this ANTM is Elizabeth Oyer, she says, biting my tongue because I work for the appellate court that could hear her case and I have access to her pleadings below. And that was posted on this public blog here. And then ANTM is posting things and then she's erasing them and deleting them and stuff to get rid of the evidence because she doesn't want to get caught in her misconduct. So we see this throughout her posts, and this is kind of a modus operandi of Elizabeth Oyer. So one of her friend law clerks or lawyers says, "Oh dear Anne, you must have some wicked bite marks in your tongue right now. I don't know how you can stand it." Here we see again Elizabeth Oyer having made a message on a public blog and then getting rid of the evidence by deleting it. This is her modus operandi, is to destroy the evidence that was posted here. So then Elizabeth Oyer says, Galloper, email me. I want to talk about this stuff with somebody and not feel guilty. And she posted this here. So let's look at this for a minute. So Elizabeth Oyer is feeling guilty. Guilty of what? Well, did she feel guilty when she was being interviewed by Anderson Cooper about her part at the middle of this firestorm, all these accusations against her now? So it certainly resonates with me what some of these videos on YouTube and news stories are saying and the accusations that are being made at the middle of this firestorm that Elizabeth Oyer finds herself in. But for me personally, to watch her in her interview with Anderson Cooper, just portraying herself as such innocence, well, her long history of misconduct and autism hate attacks on me does not bear out that kind of portrayal. Because when she's saying she's a law clerk assigned to my case, so whatever ex parte information she is feeding to my judge, the Honorable Stanley Marcus, to sway the outcome of my case, and then she says she doesn't want to feel guilty. Well, I think that says it all. It shows that she is the kind of person who would engage in misconduct, and that's my opinion based on my unfortunate crossing paths with this woman. Elizabeth Oyer is warned by one of her law clerk attorney friends here, "Anne, I would think you are nuts to share any details over a public BB. It might be CP free today, but what about tomorrow or the next day? Who knows?" That was posted here. I was posting under CP. That was me for my autism service horse Cello's Pride. So now you have one of her lawyer or law clerk friends who's participating in all this with Elizabeth Oyer, telling her she's nuts to be talking about this on public blogs. So here ANTM Elizabeth Oyer is talking and says, "I do know that I cannot belong to any organizations that might come before the court like EPA or NAACP or NOW. Cannot make political donations or belong to political groups. Cannot ever protest anything ever, etc." And here's where she is admitting she has an undisclosed mental illness. But they never said anything about having an unhealthy obsession with a litigant I counter on an internet BB. And she posted that here. And just to be clear, people who have unhealthy obsessions with someone else so often fall into the roles of stalkers, of people fixated on another person. These are mental illnesses. And if we look at the date of these posts are happening in 2004. This is before Elizabeth Oyer submitted her bar application to the state of Maryland to become a federal defender. She herself is admitting she has an undisclosed mental illness. And this is just shocking to me it's shocking for a couple reasons. One is I don't understand why bar examiners are not required to vet the mental health status of every single bar applicant, not just people who say, hi, I have a disability, but every single bar applicant. That's number one. And number two, how is she getting into these kinds of positions like a law clerk for a federal court of appeals, or being licensed in a state like Maryland, or getting these security clearances she would have had to have as a federal defender, and certainly as the pardon chief for Joe Biden with this undisclosed mental illness? How is she being put in these positions of trust with an undisclosed mental illness and not being vetted for this sufficiently well enough to root out these problems? Next, we have one of Elizabeth Oyer's law clerk friends or attorney friends, Tawanda, saying, I have this insane obsession with meeting her in person, like anyone up for a trip to Florida. This is an incitement, and Elizabeth Oyer is participating in this. She's never saying that's wrong. She's participating in this, and this is a statement of intent to stalk me across state lines into the state of Florida. Now, I don't know about anywhere else, but it would seem to me that obsessive stalking has to be a crime. I'm not safe from being stalked by this Elizabeth Oyer and her friends who are admitting undisclosed mental illness by their obsessions, so obsessed they're going to stalk me across state lines into the state of Florida. And one of them, well, assigned to my case as a law clerk in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And this is the woman you see portraying herself as so innocent to Anderson Cooper. Well, she has a long history of misconduct, and this really needs to be looked into. So Galloper, who Elizabeth Oyer was talking to, says, trip to Florida. I Yahoo mapped her address off of the pleadings. I know I'm an evil child. It really does appear to be a boat slip. So that is an admission by one of Ann T.M., Elizabeth Oyer's law clerk or lawyer friends, that she's participating within this, who is admitting a criminal intent to stalk me across state lines and they find out where I lived. I'm autistic. And certainly the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals and its judge, the Honorable Stanley Marcus, were not keeping me safe from this criminal stalking. Stanley Marcus's law clerk and her law clerk friends and lawyers. And they posted the stalking posts here. If Elizabeth Oyer is claiming to be so innocent in the middle of this firestorm and accusations that she may have forged former President Joe Biden's signature to some of the pardons with AutoPen, and she's out there saying, oh no, I wouldn't have done that, and she's got this perfect Harvard federal haircut and wearing all the perfect neurotypical clothes and coming across as so innocent, she wouldn't do that. She's participating in a mob attack on an autistic adult. Well, she's assigned as a law clerk to my case in the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals and participating with these law clerk friends of hers saying, let's stalk this autistic adult across state lines into the state of Florida. And Elizabeth Oyer and one of her law clerk friends are both saying they have an undisclosed mental illness and unhealthy obsession with an autistic adult. What? This just should leave anybody speechless. Well, why then would she not do something as criminal as forge a president's signature on pardons as the pardon chief? You have to ask that question. And not only that, her innocent little thing doesn't answer another question. And that is, she's the pardon chief for Joe Biden. And so if these pardons have to be filed with federal courts, and it has to be filed through the CMECF electronic filing system of the federal courts, well, under whose signature and supervision is she filing these documents with the federal courts? This is a can of worms. Now, I'm not the FBI. I'm not the Attorney General. But certainly, I would think that Elizabeth Oyer should be open to investigation. And I can say as a whistleblower, being the target of one of her autism hate attacks, in this kind of criminality her friends that are in cahoots with her are writing about publicly on these blogs, well, I think she's got a long history of misconduct. And she really should be investigated. Elizabeth Oyer, here she is admitting she's destroying evidence by deleting posts and information. And this is her post. Just in case anyone's wondering, I deleted some of the references to where I work, etc. from this email. Mention of CP's return has me paranoid, particularly since she noted the bashing on other BBs, and that's posted here. Another one of Elizabeth Oyer's friends, law clerks, attorneys, or friends, Pumpkin's mom, joins in and says, that's it. Let's have her declared a vexatious litigant. Then they would have to go to court first and prove that they even have a definable and sustainable cause, and then they can sue. Okay, now just to be clear here, because this is really important as I tell the sequence of events of what they did, is that this Elizabeth Oyer and her law clerk friends and attorneys that are participating in this autism hate mob attack on me because I'm an autistic adult, they are not parties in my case or any of my cases. They are outsiders who are ex parte to my cases. Ann TM was a law clerk for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Honorable Stanley Marcus, assigned to one of my cases. But they are not a party in any of my cases where they would be a person as a party who could file a vexatious litigant motion against me. And so you have one of Ann TM's friends she's participating with saying, let us outsiders to her case, have her declared a vexatious litigant. Have her how? How are you going to get a Florida Circuit judge to declare me as a vexatious litigant? What is the mechanism you as an outsider are going to use to influence, bribe, pay, or somehow reward a Florida circuit judge? This would be any circuit judge my cases happen to become assigned to declare me to be a vexatious litigant. You got to ask that question. That's very interesting. Very interesting. And remember, Elizabeth Oyer is out there telling Anderson Cooper, oh no, she's just so innocent and just the Harvard lawyer. And, she doesn't think she did anything wrong in the midst of this firestorm that's making accusations that she may have forged Joe Biden's signatures on some of those pardons. So you have this element of lawfare. And Elizabeth Oyer and her friends, Ann TM and Pumpkin's mom, her friends, can use a mechanism of lawfare outside of a person's cases to get a Florida circuit judge who becomes assigned to the target autistic person's cases to declare that person a vexatious litigant. Well, how can they do that? How are they doing this lawfare, just like what they did to President Trump, to target a person this way? she really needs to be investigated by Kash Patel and the FBI and our Attorney General Pam Bondi as to this lawfare and how Elizabeth Oyer and her friends are doing this. And that was posted here. And so Elizabeth Oyer's friend Galloper says, Pumpkin's mom. That's what I was thinking of. Vexatious litigant. There's different parts to it, but in California, they have to have filed 5 actions in the last 7 years that were determined adversely, i.e. she lost. I wonder if other states are similar or if there's a federal component. So Elizabeth Oyer's friend, another law clerk or lawyer or friend, Galloper, who's participating in this autism hate and mobbing and stalking, is saying that she agrees with being able to get some, in California, it would be a superior court judge, to put a vexatious litigant order on me in the state of California. Well, in any state that has a vexatious litigant statute, they're admitting they are, through lawfare, outside of a case and not a party to the case who can file a vexatious litigant motion. They are influencing, bribing, maybe intimidating. What are they doing? They're using some mechanism of lawfare to get a judge who my cases happen to become assigned to put a vexatious litigant order on me. That's what they're admitting to. And Pumpkin's mom responds, just for you, Galloper, I found it. Here's a link to the whole statute for the Florida vexatious litigant. And they posted their 2 posts here. And Pumpkin's mom here signs her name as Gail M. Moriner. And that is posted here. So what does that mean? What are fucking tools? Well, folks, that's another word for lawfare. That's how the deep staters that did this to President Donald Trump, that did this to me, this identifies Elizabeth Oyer as part of the deep state. And this is how they target and bring their lawfare about upon innocent Americans that just happen to cross paths with them. Fucking tools. Those are the fucking tools of the deep state, the fucking tools of lawfare. These are crimes being committed on innocent people, in this case, an autistic adult. This is the history of misconduct of Elizabeth Oyer. She's out there saying, oh, I'm so innocent. I graduated from Harvard. I've got the right haircut. I'm wearing the perfect suit. Oh, Anderson Cooper. I would never forge Joe Biden's name on a pardon. Oh, not me. But here's her history. This is her prior history. And she's in concerted action with her lawyer and attorney friends and her friends that are saying, as outsiders, let's fix one of Mary Catherine Day Petrano's cases. Let's fix it with our fucking tools, with lawfare, to influence a Florida State Circuit judge to put a vexatious litigant order on her. Oh, well. Now, doesn't that raise a strong appearance of impropriety about the Honorable Florida Circuit Judge Monica Brasington's putting two vexatious litigant orders on me? Lots of questions, a can of worms. And what are these fucking tools that apparently they use to get Florida Circuit judges or judges in any state that has a vexatious litigant statute to put a vexatious litigant order on someone? Well, Barry here, one of Ann TM's law clerk or attorney friends, says, no, Minnie, plus fucking tools, plus there is a way we can make you think yes, plus in the middle there are no potholes, equals way down there I am in the sour. This is lawfare. This is fixing case outcomes. And that was posted here. Now, I have to say, I am really surprised these judges of the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals have made me unsuccessful in just about every one of my cases while they have protected Elizabeth Oyer, a.k.a. Auntie M, especially after the things that she said about them. Here's Auntie M here. She's saying, I had to sit through the judiciary's training for clerks about the Supreme Court's recent term, though, and I realized that my court, unlike the Ninth Circuit, lives in fear of the Supreme Court. And rather than applying the law and being independent, the court's main goal is to prevent reversal. Grow some cojones, you boring old judges. And she posted that here. And then Auntie M is responding to this quote, the crazy judge had peed his pants. Okay, now that's funny. I'm going to keep that in mind when one of the crazy judges on my court annoys me. And she posted that here. That's Elizabeth Oyer. That's former President Biden's pardon chief, who is in the middle of this firestorm. And I'm just in shock when I read this. I mean, I could never picture myself saying anything like this about any judge, much less federal judges of the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, including the one she worked for. And Auntie M, law clerk, lawyer, friend, this is mad. Responding to a quote, Red Rover, let the ADA come over, said, no, because then she will have a legit claim for being mentally disabled after this BB is done with her. And that was posted here. So, by that comment, there does not appear to be any statute of limitations on this. Autism, hate attacks, and mobbing that I got from Elizabeth Oyer and her fellow law clerks, lawyers, friends. And that was posted here. And Mad posted her name. Marie DeBaney posted here. Now, this is my Facebook page, and Marie DeBaney got on my Facebook page by asking to be a friend. And she has again asked to be a friend. What this means is that this autism hate attack, Auntie M, Elizabeth Oyer, and her law clerk and lawyer friends that was made on me back in 2004. Well, Elizabeth Oyer was law clerk for the Honorable Stanley Marcus of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, whereas, just to summarize what their post showed, that they were engaging in lawfare, that they were making threats against me. Basically, they'll destroy me beyond mortal comprehension and cause financial ruin to me. I mean, this is just a lady whose path I crossed because I brought a case in a court in Florida. And I think this is in the past. Well, no, because this has continued since then. She set in motion this whole lawfare intimidation thing on me, and they're coming around the edge of my property and shooting, and they've been hacking me on a daily basis. They're obstructing me from actually filing my application for Florida bar admission and have been. They're obstructing a Social Security claim. They hacked my computers and caused a screw-up in my complaint that got sanctioned before the Honorable Gary R. Jones, United States Magistrate, in 2012-13. They were hacking during my husband's Florida disbarment proceedings. I mean, this has never stopped. Not since the moment my paths crossed ANTMs. And so I can show you what some of the hacking looks like. And there's just so much. If I put it all in a video, that video would be 2 or 3 hours long. Right there, I'm being hacked. This is what was put in force by ANTM. So you can see it never stopped. It never stopped since the day Elizabeth Oyer started those blog posts as a law clerk for the 11th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. With all of the autism hate, the attacks, all the mockery, just because I'm an autistic adult. And here she is just talking to Anderson Cooper about how pure and innocent she is, along with these accusations that an auto pen was used to sign former President Joe Biden's name to some of those pardons. And then all these accusations that he wasn't around, he wasn't aware they were being signed, according to all these news accounts. All I'm saying is Elizabeth Oyer needs to be subject to an investigation over this, as well as her history of what she did to me. And you have to ask, how did she even get to be a member of the Maryland State Bar? She had to fill out a bar application, and there's a catch-all question on all these bar applications. Is there anything else you need to disclose to us? Well, don't you think she would have had to disclose what she did to me? All these blog posts she made as ANTM, the autism hate attacks, the Lawfare, all this stuff she did. I mean, this goes way beyond what the Honorable Stanley Marcus probably found out about what she was doing. She's making threats against me. These threats are continuing with shooters at the edge of my property. With every other day, criminal accusations are being made against me to frame me on just any number of things. It's just like, are we really living in the United States today? President Trump says what all Americans know was done to him with the Lawfare totally resonates with me, because it was done to me too. And now at the center of this firestorm over Elizabeth Oyer and those pardons that were signed in former President Joe Biden's name with the auto pen, well, all I could say is she has a history of doing autism hate attacks on me, Lawfare, her and her friends, and this has not stopped today. This is one of my evidentiary files about Elizabeth Oyer and TM. Here's the hacker at the bottom. They have hacked my file to destroy all the evidence. Now, I do have other copies of this file, so their actions have not really had any impact, but I'm making this video because this is the date here, and ANTM Elizabeth Oyer is in the middle of a firestorm of a potential criminal investigation as Joe Biden's ex-pardon attorney and how the pardons were signed. And suddenly I'm being hacked and ANTM evidence is being destroyed. If you ask the question, who has the strongest motivation to destroy this evidence? It would be none other than Elizabeth Oyer herself. Ask the question, how plausible is it that these hackers have a connection to Elizabeth Oyer? All I can say to the FBI Director, Kash Patel, is if you think you got all the deep state actors out of the FBI, you better look again, because this is continuing against me on a daily basis. I cannot get them off my computer to be able to earn an income as an autistic adult or to make my Florida bar application. And they are interfering with my autism videos and my horse videos. All I could say to Attorney General Pam Bondi is, you need to look some more. I believe there are probably still deep staters in the Department of Justice. President Trump fired Elizabeth Oyer, but this is continuing. And one of them posed as a deep fake of my daughter who's been missing since January 2013. And they were using all sorts of attorney words. Demeanor. They were saying horses have demeanor. These are deep state actors. And this girl, Elizabeth Oyer, she has a history. Did she disclose it on her Maryland bar application? Did she disclose it on her security clearance to be a federal public defender? Did she disclose it on her security clearance to get the chief pardon job with the U.S. Department of Justice? I'll bet not. So that's my video for today. We need some investigation to dig deeper. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button and ring the bell and you'll be notified of my future videos. And thank you for watching.